So the DanMachi author has done it again with Wistoria, an anime that I had my eye on, but I wasn't necessarily going in with too much expectations. Then I watched the preview and I was like, wow, that's seemingly really well put together. This could be fun. And then I'm like, oh wait, the DanMachi author's making this. I quite like DanMachi, especially with how it goes from a fun show in season 1 and then escalates into a actually pretty well written one. And honestly, the best way to put it is it's basically DanMachi if we went to Hogwarts, but if Hogwarts also had a dungeon that we crawled through. They did a surprisingly good job with the central lead, not only like giving who seemingly is like a love interest, like it, this is the type of character you look at Will, and you think he's not going to really have a lot of balls, but between him actually like admitting out loud, not being super nervous that like, hey, you're cute, I think you're cute, and her being like, Jesus, to the fact that he actually contemplating like letting his bully die, because he's like, this guy's like made my life living hell this entire time, I probably should just let him die. But then he remembers that he is a good-natured person, so he does protect, but it's like, there's a lot of little elements about this character that, like, for the first half of the episode, I'm kind of watching, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about this guy as an MC. But by the end of the episode, I thought he was absolutely perfect for what they're trying to do. They do some surprising, interesting world building. There's like this giant seal in their sky, and from my understanding, my theory crafting is that they basically forced God out of their world. Like, God was in the sky, maybe angels of some sort, and these wizards put up a barrier, and now we're in this weird, like, situation where they are protected, but like, what the hell are these invaders on top of a school system of earning credits where your MC can't use a single wink of magic, but is going to try to pass and earn enough credits through pure brute strength alone, and honestly, he might just do it. I have full live reactions over on Patreon. If you want to see my full and good thought to this or any of these episodes, it's going to be over there exclusively. I definitely recommend not sleeping on this one. It was very good. Like, the more I looked into the show, the more excited I was getting, but I was still cautious walking in. And the first half of the episode wasn't anything that was like blowing me away, but it had my interest from pretty much minute 1. I mean, the fact that we seemingly had like multiple school-like buildings, I was like, okay, usually you just get that big Hogwarts building, right? It just like the world seemed interesting, and here's the thing, everyone's gonna rave about the animation with the fight for obvious reasons, and rightfully so. But the thing about it is it's not just the fight animation that was good. From near minute 1, this was a beautifully produced episode. Capes are flapping in the wind, the expression of how bodies move, like just the smallest of details were animated like they had something to prove. This is a very well put together show. The art direction is very consistent. It's a little sharper, a little more, I don't know, dark and gritty, I guess is the best way to put it. There's a lot of bright and poppy shows of the season, so if you're into more of that, maybe the color palette of this show is not going to be necessarily for you. But I definitely think once they got into the dungeon, it really started to click with me a lot more. It's just like, there's something about the way things are being expressed that it's like, okay, I could easily compare a lot of the functionality of this episode to stuff from a DanMachi or other authors' works, but the overall package of it doesn't really leave a lot to be desired. You just kind of walk in and out saying, okay, bet, I'm definitely here for episode 2, or at least it's how I'm feeling. The idea of like the school structure, my understanding of it is basically like there's 3 different like points of like a curriculum, and you ultimately earn 10,000 credits over the course of your school year through those different curriculums. The unfortunate thing is the character we're following can't use magic, not even a basic spell. So how would he pass, right? Like, I mean, maybe he can do book smart stuff. Well, as we see, he's been going into a dungeon. One of the professors in this show seemingly has a soft spot for him and is basically giving him advice of like, hey, this creature down here is worth 4 credits. You need another couple. What ends up happening in this episode is the creature we go to find isn't there, and a 10 credit creature basically jumps the bully and his goons. I don't think those goons lived, and if they did, they're going to be in full body cast. It's kind of funny though, when the one teacher's like, hey, my students, they went into this dungeon, we gotta go find them. And he's like, don't worry boss, Will's here. And it's like, as funny and like as great as it is that the teacher had confidence in us, he missed the part where Buddy got smacked by Hulk smash into a wall and I think was killed on impact. And that's kind of hilarious to me. But honestly though, like the fight in general, like when things popped off, that contemplation he had of like, should he let him die, was actually a very impressive character moment, because really, with like the little glimpses we saw, it seemed like he was a dick towards our main character, but like seeing the flashback, like pretty much from minute one, like, I mean, the entire reason this guy went down into the dungeon was to hunt the thing so Will couldn't get the credit, so he would fail and drop out. It's very clear he just doesn't appreciate him, but honestly, his mentality seems no different than even that other teacher, or probably most of the school, that magic is superior, so someone who can't use magic is a peasant, right? So the idea of someone using pure brute strength to surpass magic is probably considered blasphemy in this world. But watching it, like, they did a great job at the start of the episode by showing him fighting some creature in the dungeon, and then it gets like 10 times surpassed when you fight this thing. Like, he's basically a Soulsborne gamer. At one point, this like Minotaur-like beast loses his giant sword, and Will like walks up, grabs that fool, and slices him. It was metal. It was pure metal and adrenaline, and it was so freaking fun. I don't think we're going to be picking up a lot of women in this dungeon, but here's the thing. We have the connection to the childhood friend who's now up in the tower doing her thing, seemingly looking down, you know, hoping that her pal will be able to get up there with her someday. We have the crush, who I can't tell if he's actually crushing over her or just legitimately thinks she's cute, but either way, I think she's crushing on him. So there is like a little romance, a little flirtatious stuff that actually is already more progressed than a lot of shows get by episode 6 of their run, which is a little sad to admit out loud. But I think the biggest thing is that usually in a show like this, the thing you're most interested in is usually like a side character, like another student, a friend or something. I actually really like that teacher who he drops like the skulls and the proof that he killed certain creatures in the dungeon. The dynamic between those two, I'm really interested in seeing more. And while I didn't hate Will's character in the first half of the episode, I was more indifferent. I was like, okay, you know, the character design, everything, like I'm kind of feeling like he might be a bit of a pushover, and they really surprised me with the internal dialogue he had about contemplating his bully's life, and then how he decided to push on and say like, hey bro, are you okay? It ain't gonna be sunshine and rainbows after that, but they handled it better than I think a lot of shows would do, if I'm being honest. Definitely a surprise of the season. I think a lot of people probably looked at the name, the poster image, and thought, that kind of looks like generic whatever, not knowing it's from the DanMachi author, or it was gonna have some of the best animation of the season. So yeah, hopefully more people are going to give this one a shot. That was great. That has me very excited for episode 2 next week, but let me know what you're feeling down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're around, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Shadow, Trix, Askar, Bat, Floxer, Armanta, and we also have Kev. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and you'll have a good one.